Reasonably briefly to support this bill. I opposed the government's draconian, rammed through the parliament crackdown on public assembly when they pushed it through this parliament, and I continue to oppose it, and I will take every opportunity to support moves to wind that back. I know that this is timely because just last week, 2 members of a peaceful protest, the type of protest that in fact happens most Fridays, starting in Rundle Mall, that proceeded down to Pulteney Street, 2 of the members of that protest were some days later raided by SAPOL officers, detained and presented with really strict bail conditions. Now, the Honourable Connie Benares has outlined exactly what happened in those cases in terms of one of those people accepted the bail conditions and continues until into November at the very least to be very much restrained in their ability to participate in their work life, in their social life, and certainly in their political life. They were not even able to attend a press conference to talk about the restrictions on their civil liberties because of those bail conditions. Another person who did refuse to comply with those bail conditions did then spend 17 hours detained over the course of that weekend. Now, it does not, once they've finally been able to access the courts, does not have those same conditions restricting their freedom of movement. But all of this is about sending a chilling message to restrict freedom of speech, freedom for people to protest, to proclaim what their views are in public places. That is, in fact, what this very council, this very parliament, our very democratic institution is based on. It is something that this parliament we should be defending and welcoming, where it is done peacefully, not allowing our police force to arbitrarily pick 2 members of that protest off days later and detain them in the way that has now happened in this state. I have not seen a statement from the government expressing concern with the policing of these new laws. Where is that? I ask the Miscellaneous government and the Attorney-General. Where is that statement of concern that 2 people arbitrarily from that peaceful protest were days later then picked out by the police in what will send a chilling message, not just to South Australians who perhaps support Palestine, but it sends a chilling message to any South Australian who wishes to take to the street. Reclaim the Night is coming up, October 31st. It's always the last Friday of that month of October, right around the world. What's to say police won't later on decide some of those women demanding a safe, respectful community where they are free, whether it's day or night, to be in public or to be in their homes. What's to say that many of those women might not think twice about attending that Reclaim the Night rally, just in case, should they be a marshal and the police have their details, that they then get that knock on the door, that they then spend inordinate amounts of time detained or are subject to strict bail provisions that stop them attending their place of work, that stop them studying, that stop them being able to care properly for their children and go to a certain location, that stop them using public transport. If you are looking at a police regime that has used the current laws that this government and the opposition willingly created and rammed through this place, if you see an incident like that used against 2 people, what's to say it won't be used against 20 people, against 200 people, against people simply peacefully protesting in this state? The very thing that this democratic institution relies on, the very thing we celebrate with the Muriel Matters grill in the front centre hall, where the suffragists, and Muriel Matters in particular, obstructed that democratic process by locking on to that grill. We celebrate these things. We celebrate the diversity of opinions. We celebrate the right of people to peacefully protest. But here in this state of South Australia in the last week, we have detained 2 people quite arbitrarily who did nothing other than peacefully protest in a way that for week after week for the last 2 years they have done, and in a way that dozens of other people at that protest did not get detained for. Where is the logic in that? Where is the protection of democracy in that? And where is the Miscellaneous government in calling out that behaviour and saying that is not an acceptable application of these laws? I'm glad that the Attorney-General actually spoke to this debate. I'm sure he did so to have a go and a crack at the Honourable Frank Pangello. But it's actually refreshing to see a government minister coming to talk to a portfolio in private members' business for a change. You, of course, are protected by parliamentary privilege in speaking in this place. You, of course, are protected by your position. But a person going out on the steps of Parliament House to a press conference to talk about the fact that they are subject to strict bail conditions that stop them from attending anything on the Parliament House steps or attending their place of work or being able to go about their daily business, they are not that privileged and they deserve our protections as well. And that is why I would have hoped in this debate you would have acknowledged that this is not how you wanted these laws to work, because certainly they seem to be working in exactly the way that the opposition and the government intended them to, and that is to send a chilling message to any South Australian not to raise their voice, not to be out on the streets and not to make a fuss. Should you fall foul of the police mood that day, you might just end up detained or on bail conditions and having to wait for the courts to fix this Parliament's mistakes. And that is not good enough. It is simply not good enough. And with that, I hope that this isn't the last time that we see this debate, and I hope eventually the opposition and the government will understand that they overreached that day. And it was a day. It literally was a day that we saw that pass through the Parliament, and it went too far, and it has sent a signal to the police that they can go too far when it comes to our democratic institutions.